All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich Celenza. Thanks for checking out the Rich Celenza Show. So, what I want to call this podcast is I was obsessed with competition, but no longer compete. Now, that may not entirely be true if you played, or if I played chess with somebody, maybe, or I did something, went and played some sports or in a family picnic or something. Yeah, I like competing, but on a funner level. If you know anything about me or my past, I actually created a clothing line called Sore Loser Wear. And it was a clothing line for people who hated to lose. My slogan was, it doesn't matter if you win or lose as long as you come in first. And I was at my mother's this week, and, I had my prototype clothing line stored there, at least part of it. And I was looking through it, and it kind of brought back all these different memories. I may do a podcast on it, like all the different things I did, and I'm looking at this clothing line that I developed about 15 years ago that I love very much. I was just trying to do too much at one time. Truthfully, I believe I'm trying to raise money for films, trying to start my own clothing line, not only that, trying to write screenplays. Then I went into writing a book. Typical me, taking on way too many things at one time and losing focus. Not sure if Sore Loser Wear was the right timing, but I looked at Tap Out, and Tap Out originally, I think, from what I heard, people thought it meant you quit, but it didn't. It actually meant it meant quite the opposite. It meant you wanted somebody to tap out, and that's what Sore Loser Wear was about. It was about hating to lose. This was really before, the internet was there, obviously, but it was just different, ways of marketing. Really, I don't even remember when I started my clothing line, there was no Facebook. It was MySpace at that time, believe it or not. And I think there was only Twitter out there. Anyways, I realized about myself that being always competitive, and when I say that, I don't mean necessarily with others. I always talk about you're only really competing against yourself at the end of the day. And I was kind of beating myself up a lot because I wouldn't accomplish a lot of times what I wanted to accomplish from a competition standpoint, let's say. This kind of came out with some film festival stuff. I won some awards, which was really cool. And I felt like the awards was when I was the happiest. And then I'm like, why? For somebody, I used to preach and say I'm creating films or I'm doing what I'm doing because it's an expression of myself. And I'm not doing this for anybody. Of course I'm doing it for people I want to watch it, that are interested in it. But I should say, I'm not making it to win an award. But I think maybe I was. And I think a lot of filmmakers or artists a lot of times, I don't care if you're a musician, filmmaker, television, you do things because you want your peers to acknowledge you and maybe get awards, obviously get attention. All these things mean a lot, and I get it. And I was very fortunate because I was able to go to, let's just say, the Emmys, for instance, numerous times. And I remember, sitting up in the balcony and you're looking down at all very, well-known artists, famous actors, actresses, producers. And you're like, yeah, I can't wait to get down there. And you see them winning all their awards. You're like, maybe, hopefully one day I can win an award. And I really had to take a step back eventually. I remember the last Emmy I went to and said, what I want to do has nothing to do with awards anymore. I'm also not competing against anybody. I could care less about that shit. What I want to do is create what I want to create, have the freedom to create it, and also help others go after their desires and make them believe that they can go after what they want and become who they want. And that's kind of, as time went on, how the Mastering Self-Confidence program kind of came out. That relates more with women that I created, and relationships and how to deal with certain things. But still, at the end of the day, I'm not interested in competing against anyone anymore. In the future, I might. Maybe I'll take on something. Who knows? I could go join a bocce ball club, and I would love to play, competition that way. But not competition, I should say, in art. Because after really, again, going to a lot of different award shows, film festivals, I kind of look at it as being very confusing. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't want people to acknowledge me. Of course, if someone wants to give me a award, I'm not a dick to say, no, thank you. I don't think that's cool either. If people want to acknowledge you, God bless. Your peers, friends, other colleagues, great. I shouldn't rain on anybody's parade, especially somebody that, feels like what they're doing maybe for me is good. As long as I'm down with whatever their organization is. But I look a lot of times even at, films, for instance, Oscars, best film, and how can you really truly take one film and say it's better than another, or one song is truly better than another because of sales? Because that's usually not even the case. Is it because of, is it the cinematography? Is it the act? It's all those things. Okay. But the truth is, like in sports or competition, let's just take, I don't care if it's football, you compete against one another, but it's the same game. I get film is kind of the same game, but it really isn't, because each film is done entirely different than the other. The budget, the script, the location, again, the actors. Now, if you took a film like The Godfather and say you had 5 different filmmakers make a version of it, that same film, and then you could say, what does everyone think is the best? That kind of makes more sense to me. And that goes with music as well. I get maybe one album maybe more popular than the other. But again, that doesn't mean it's better instrumental-wise. Doesn't mean the lyrics are better, or all these different types of things. I didn't mean to go on a rant with that. But if you're somebody, who's constantly kind of judging yourself, judging yourself regarding you maybe not feeling like you're winning or being acknowledged or winning awards, or, you got to understand, like, that a lot of that shit is great, but a lot of it's bullshit. And if you truly want to, find your voice and create or do certain things, I understand a lot of times we have to find things that are familiar with others, familiarity, especially if you want to be an artist and you want to make money. Again, I don't care if it's music, film, TV, or whatever. I don't care if you're a painter, whatever the case may be. You got to kind of do something that's going to get attention, that if you want to make money on it, especially that people are going to purchase. So there is that competition component, because you are competing against other people in your industry. I get it. But on the other end, also, you being competitive can be blocking you. So instead of, thinking about how to do something amazing, right? Not for the competition, not for an award show, not for all those things, can also be a huge benefit to yourself. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, especially if you were like myself, a very competitive person. Because a lot of times, too, we start subconsciously, I should say myself. So if I love Martin Scorsese and I love Quentin Tarantino, I liked the way they made films. I'm kind of making films like them a little bit. I'm not competing, but I'm kind of learning from them. And I'm trying not to knock off what they're doing. But I gravitated towards that type of work, which is great. But then I really had to say, I'm my own filmmaker. I really have nothing to do with either one of these guys. I've seen their films, but really at the end of the day, I don't necessarily need to make a gangster style film now, or a twisted type film as far as the ending, you not knowing how it's going to go, or a movie that's really only about Italians or thieves and all these things. And I even had to step back and say, you know what, let's get out of this a little bit. I started writing, I'll just give you for example, I started writing a horror style film because I like scary movies. And everyone's like, that's weird. And then I started writing screenplays for pilots. So I wrote a comedy. And then I started to write a kids show, because I was always with my daughters, called the D&D Factory. And my other show was called The Has-Been, actually, which was about somebody from Chicago or LA that, wins a lot of awards and then falls on hard times, and they send him, instead of SNL, they send him back to the theater in Chicago, Improv Olympic in Second City, where his roots were from. And it just, all these things, what I'm trying to say to you is I kind of got away from just thinking about competing, and as far as an art form. And the only person, again, you're competing against is yourself. But just try to sit back sometimes and really analyze why you're doing what you're doing in life. It could be even at the workplace. You could be a student. Are you actually doing things to compete, to kind of show off? Or are you competing to hurt someone? It could even be in relationships. I see it a lot where husband and wives, they're competing against one another. And a lot of times they're arguing over a lot of things, or it could be financial, it could be even fitness and all these different things. Now, there's a fine line between fun competition and then when it goes too far. And we were kind of known as the sore loser family because we hated to lose. And after a while, I look back and go, what the hell was I taking so serious, or taking things so seriously for, even in a relationship? So once I kind of got that out of my system, and when I work with my girlfriend now, even when she's helping me sometimes, I think it's not competitive, but she's trying to outdo me. I'm trying to outdo her. It could be a photo. It could be her helping me with literature. It could be me doing it. But I'm like, hey, let's have fun with this. Let's not get aggravated with each other, because that can happen as well. And that can happen with your friends. It can happen with anybody. When you have that competition, drive, which again, I'm the last person to tell you not to be competitive as far as driving yourself. So there's a big difference, again, I think, between being competition and getting caught up with others, but also having that, where you compete. How should I say this? When you are competing, or if you decide to, like, you have a lot of drive. That kind of went weird, but I think hopefully you understand what I mean. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, definitely check out my website, richcelenza.com. I have Mastering Self-Confidence program. That's masteringselfconfidence.com. You can find me everywhere else on Google. All right, take care.